Alright, so here's this week's weekly Nightfall. It's Birthplace of the Vile. I'm doing a solo flawless master run. Attrition is the weekly modifier, which means we need to pick up those white wells of light off the enemies when we kill them if we want to get any kind of health back. Also, without picking them up, our ability regen, it's just regeneration in general, so health and abilities. They're also impaired, so we need to pick up those wells, which means we can afford to play a little bit more aggressive. We kind of have to. We can't just sit back and shoot stuff from far and expect to get any kind of health recovery, unless you're relying on certain aspects and fragments and abilities to your whatever's inherent to your subclass. So, with that said, it's usually a wise choice to go with some kind of regeneration ability in your subclass. So Warlock is always a top choice for attrition and togetherness because you can put down a healing rift. If you're on Titan, you can go with Sentinel. That way you can guarantee yourself overshields when your health is low. And then for all three classes, you can go with Solar, obviously, because you can build into Solar with your combat mods, such as like Well of Life when you pick up an elemental well. That's Solar, healing grenades, that kind of stuff. Now the daily modifier is Ashes to Ashes, which is kind of an interesting daily modifier. It's not as crazy as like Lightning Crystals was last season, but it does give you something interesting to play with on if you're doing Solar. Unfortunately, this Nightfall, I don't advise using Solar at all. It's pretty much, I mean, it's an acute void burn, so you do 25% more damage by using Void, and basically all the shields in the entire Nightfall are Void. So you basically just want to be fully loaded with Void, which means you could run like a Font of Might build or something like that. Any kind of synergistic Void build would do pretty well here. The only spot where you encounter shields other than Void it's about halfway through the mission. There's the encounter with the grand staircase leading up to it, and there's a balcony on the right. There's a high balcony on the left if you're inside the room. There's an overload in there, and there's a couple of random shielded yellow bar scorn. So it's different every time. You could end up with a Void and a Solar, or 2 arc shields. It's just completely random. So it's not a big deal. Those are the only 2 that you have to take care of. You can easily rely on your super to break their shields, or you can just patiently wear them down with a grenade and use your abilities. Eventually you'll get it. But I'm using Dead Messenger, which is not so dead after all, especially on this Nightfall. Very good. The waveform, it's debatable whether it's as good as Forbearance with chain reaction, but keep in mind with normal waveforms you just get that single path of damage, that single wave. With Dead Messenger you get 3 waves. Mind you, the waves don't travel as far as they do with the other waveforms like Explosive Personality and Forbearance, but it's a super wide splay, and so it's really good at wide ad clearing, and you can change through the elements. So its default energy type is Void, which is basically all I wanted for this Nightfall anyways. But you can switch it just like Borealis and Hard Light, just by holding down the reload button or whatever configuration you have on your bindings. You can switch it to Solar, you can switch it to Arc. So I don't even know if I needed to switch it at all. but I just figured it'd be decent backup to take care of those 2 random shields that we'll have to encounter. But with this Sentinel build, I'm basically doing a volatile Titan build, and volatile pretty much wrecks everything anyways, even match game shields. If you can apply volatile, whether it's volatile rounds or just volatility from your abilities to a target, the explosions just eat away at the match game shields fairly efficiently. So for that reason alone, just with all the volatile explosions that are going off, I think that basically took care of those 2 shields for me without me even realizing it. But other than that, the grenade launcher, I've hardly used it, and all season I've basically wanted to put it to use, because how often are we going to get grenade launchers in the artifact where we can use them against champions? We've got weaken clear, and it's an exotic grenade launcher. The only time that I really used this exotic when it first came out was in PvP, and I don't play PvP at all anymore. Like, I haven't touched PvP since Season of the Haunted. And it was pretty fun to use in PvP, but it's good in PvE as well. So because it's an exotic, it just does more damage than a normal waveform anyways. And doing this on Master, I noticed that Dead Messenger was basically one-shotting all of the tanky red bar ads, like the Wraiths, as well as orange bars, such as those Stasis Scorn with their Morning Star type stasis flails, or whatever you want to call them. You encounter some of those orange bars, and Dead Messenger was basically one-shotting them as well. So it was a lot of fun to use. And then obviously I am going with Unstoppable Grenade Launcher. There's something like a dozen Unstoppables in this Nightfall, so you can't really, if you want to do this in good time and actually have fun, you're gonna want something with Unstoppable. You know, if it was one of those Nightfalls that had like 1 or 2 Unstoppables, yeah, you can go without Unstoppable mod and take the Unstops out from range. But this isn't one of those Nightfalls where you want to be doing that. And then we've got what else we got? Weaken Clear. So Weaken Clear is also reloading my stowed weapons whenever I shoot it, which is kind of a nice little bonus. I'm using the seasonal artifact mod that makes you charge with light when you stun a champion. And then I'm combining that with high energy fire, so my stacks of charge with light are going towards 20% bonus damage. So for example, when I pull out Dead Messenger on a Unstoppable, I will stun the Unstoppable, I'll weaken the Unstoppable, which will also reload my stowed weapons. And what else? I think I was going somewhere with that. But basically, it's good. That's all I'm saying. And especially like in the plate section, it's just really good at taking care of all the waves of ads. Then, so outside of Dead Messenger, I'm using my Hung Jury, which I got from doing this on GM on reset day with a just with an LFG team. I only did the GM once, so this was literally my only roll and I didn't even have a hung jury before this. So this is my only Adept hung jury, and I just so happened to get Rapid Hit and Firefly, which I was pretty excited about. I was hoping for Rapid Hit Explosive Payload, but Firefly is not bad. It's not bad even on Master. I know, like, especially if you're doing stuff on Grandmaster, Explosive Payload is just so much better because, like, the range fall off is non-existent basically with Explosive Payload. So you can fairly efficiently take out ads and even champions and stuff from range, even on GMs. However, on Master, it's a little bit more forgiving. The enemies aren't quite as tanky, so you don't feel super punished by using, you know, any other scout that doesn't have Explosive Payload. Honestly, that's a little bit more fun too. Like, the one thing I don't like about GMs is it kind of restricts you to a very singular play style and limits your weapon choices to a very narrow lane. Like, you know, there's a certain GM meta, and that's, if you go outside that meta at all, unless you're like a god at the game, then you're just generally going to suffer, and some things will seem impossible. But when you do stuff on Master, you're not, the doors are open to a lot more to a lot more variety, which is nice. So, and which is kind of why I like, even though I could try to post some solo Grandmaster stuff, I know that there's quite a few Nightfalls that I could fairly easily do solo. But it would restrict my other, it would dilute my other content. So, like, for example, I do the weekly Witch Queen campaign missions. Well, there's no Grandmasters for those. There's no Grandmasters anywhere in the game for any content other than the 6 Nightfalls that we get for a certain period of each season. So if I only do Grandmaster stuff, then everything else that I do is going to feel and seem diluted. So I kind of like that I have this cohesive series of content that I'm doing. It's basically, it's all Master content. It's all it all has the same type of modifiers, endgame modifiers. You know, match game shields, locked loadouts, weekly modifiers. So like the campaign and the Nightfalls share the same weekly modifiers, and you don't get those in Grandmasters either. Like, there's no attrition in GMs. There's no togetherness. And there's no daily modifiers either. Like the Nightfalls on Legend, and or at least on Legend and Master, they have daily modifiers, which just add another layer of style of gameplay that you can implement, which is kind of cool. Like lightning crystals for last season, although I think that one was a little bit broken, and for me it wasn't as enjoyable to use lightning crystals just because it was kind of like easy mode. You didn't even have to really use your weapons. But this season we got subtle foes, which is generally not relevant. But if you do these on a day when subtle foes is active, and you've got a mission or Nightfall that has a lot of already stealthy enemies like Cursed Thrall and stuff like that, that's actually a little bit more interesting, because if you don't know when you're getting surrounded, and so say like Chafe is the other weekly modifier where you don't have radar, so you have no radar and you've got already stealthy enemy types that are now going to be invisible as well. So it can add a layer of challenge, which makes it kind of interesting. But generally speaking, subtle foes is not an issue. Lightning crystals is in rotation every 3 days as well, but I don't think I've done any. Or no, I did Scarlet Keep with lightning crystals on Stormcaller. But if you're doing it like with Heart of Inmost Light on Titan, then you're just gonna you don't have to shoot your weapons, so you just literally spam storm grenades, and that's not that interesting to me. Today or yesterday when I did this, I got Ashes to Ashes, which I thought was kind of interesting because I just so happened to get this hung jury with Firefly. And so I think I kind of trailed off topic when I was starting to go into hung jury. But the daily modifier actually made it more interesting to use this role. If I had actually been using a solar subclass with like Ember of Ashes and Ignitions and Amplified Scorch, that could have been pretty fun. But Firefly it's not like a damage perk that's really gonna make or break the game for you. It's not like you're gonna lean into a build completely revolved around Firefly on a kinetic primary ammo scout rifle. Like, no, you're not really gonna build into that. Hung Jury was basically just to do one job, which was to take enemies out at range when I didn't want to spend heavier special ammo, stun overloads, and that's about it. So the Firefly effect was more just like a little side bonus. But you would notice that, like in the clip that I put at the beginning of the video, where I happened to precision kill all those Scorn, each Firefly explosion spread Scorch. Now what's the difference between that and Incandescent? There's basically no difference, because this daily modifier, Ashes to Ashes, it makes it so that your solar damage spreads Scorch. So anything that you touch with solar weapons or solar abilities, you're going to scorch them. So no, the hung jury Adept that I have with Firefly, that is not normal for it to be spreading Scorch with the Firefly effect. Normally it's just a static solar explosion that does a little AoE damage instantly to things around it, and that's it. There's no Scorch. It's not like Incandescent where it just, target explodes, spreads Scorch, and you can build up your Scorch stacks if you kill enough adds in a certain radius of each other, and all of a sudden you got one spot in that radius where you've hit 100 stacks of Scorch, and then you get an ignition going, right? So Firefly doesn't work like that at all. It's just because of the daily modifier. So that opening clip could have been way cooler if I had actually spec'd into a solar build. And you could do that. If you want, just wait for that Ashes to Ashes daily modifier, which could be very good in like Warden of Nothing, because that's an acute solar burn Nightfall. And then, yeah, do something cool with Solar and Warden of Nothing. And you can... There's overloads in that as well, so you could do a Firefly ignition build. Obviously, it doesn't have to be on hung jury, but just saying. So last time I did this, it was early in the season before I had infused any of my gear. I was still like 1580 or whatever. I did it on Legend with Jerfalcon's on Night Stalker, and that was a lot of fun. And I was tempted to do it again just because I'm really enjoying the Jerfalcon's volatile build this season. But I wanted to play on Titan too, and I didn't want to basically do, you know, the same video again, even if the weapons are a little bit different, and even if it's master instead of legend. I just wanted to show that it could be done on different classes, obviously. So, but I did go with a volatile build for Titan. So I used to play a lot of with Void Titan. I would just pretty much use Bastion and Offensive Bulwark, just so that you can extend the duration of your overshields and you get that grenade energy and stuff like that. It's just kind of a bit more of a tanky support type build, as opposed to the volatile build, which is using controlled demolition as one of your aspects, and you pair that with Bastion. But it's actually, I would say, outside of the exotic exclusive Gerfalcon's Night Stalker, you know, the volatile capabilities on that build specifically, your best volatile build is Sentinel Titan, for sure. And you don't have to use any specific exotic with this build. Obviously, Heart of Inmost Light is the best because you spam your abilities more often. Your abilities are enhanced. So just generally, Heart of Inmost Light is the play. But it's completely reliant on controlled demolition, basically, which is an aspect. So whereas Night Stalker, you're relying on a specific exotic chest piece. Sentinel, all you need is controlled demolition. You apply your ability to a target, then they're volatile, and then if you can do some burst damage to them while they're volatile, you'll get instant volatile explosions, which will, you know, chain react, and you're basically getting the same effects as volatile rounds on your weapon. It's just instead of applying the volatile with your weapon, you're applying it with your abilities first, and then proccing the explosions with your weapon or with further damage. And then as far as the super goes, you can use Bubble or you can use Sentinel Shield. It's really up to you and what you prefer. I did this run a couple times with Bubble first, and I'll go over the strengths and weaknesses real quick. For Bubble, it's really good for capping the 3 plates, because you're what is it, Armor of Light or whatever buff it is that you get, that basically it's the duration of your bubble. It's like 30 seconds, and it takes about 30 seconds to cap one of those plates. So you can literally go to the plate, put your bubble on it, and you're gonna cap the plate without dying. As long as you have like an overshield and you're inside your bubble, you can pretty much withstand all the screed, everything, you know, especially if you're like dipping in and out of your bubble to put a grenade outside or shoot a wave of dead messenger. Like, it's super easy and convenient for that. It's a little bit harder to cap the plates without bubble. You can also, oddly enough, you can use your bubble on the overloads in this boss fight to quickly take them out. It may not sound very conventional, but you can, like, for that first overload that spawns in the first encounter, or the first phase of the boss fight, you can toss your vortex grenade down while the ads are spawning. Then you can drop your bubble right over top of them, and you're gonna have another grenade back right away, which means that you can lock the overload into your bubble in a vortex grenade, stunned, and then you can pretty much just punch them to death. Even in the room right before the downwards bridge into the temple, where you've got the 2 overloads, you can, if you can get a vortex grenade on one of them or on both of them, you can just drop a bubble over both of them and kill them pretty fast that way. I wouldn't recommend it with unstoppables though, because the unstoppable can stomp you and kick you and send you flying out of your bubble. Probably physics you into a wall and kill you that way. So it's not ideal for that. Bubble is also really good, like, you know, if your health gets low and you're panicked, you know, you could always put a bubble down and then you've got 30 seconds to recover and do what you gotta do. But Sentinel Shield is going to take care of all the tethered enemies for you, which is especially in the boss fight. The boss is going to constantly throw down his immunity tether, the void one, where he makes himself immune and all the ads. So Bubble's not going to help you out there at all. And as soon as you shoot the tether, then the boss is going to be pretty quick to throw down another one. So if you get to a stage where you've just got too many ads that are tethered and you're struggling with it, you can just pop your super and you can instantly destroy them all. And Sentinel Shield as a super is just so much better with controlled demolition than without. So if you're using controlled demolition, then you've got enhanced Sentinel Shield, because everything that you do, everything that you hit with your light attack, with your melee, or with your shield throw, everything becomes volatile, right? So if you don't have controlled demolition, then Sentinel Shield is really not nearly as potent. So I might as well make use of it. And frankly, the boss, even though the plate sections can be a bit challenging, I would say the boss section is definitely more challenging, and that's when you're going to need the most help you can get. So I prefer Sentinel Shield mainly for the boss room, for taking care of the tethers and all the tethered enemies. But the strat here for this boss fight is basically this, where I'm at right now, this left pillar and the right pillar. Those are the two best spots to kind of post up for a brief moment. Get an angle on the boss, and if you need to, you can do some burst damage every now and then. But you can also take care of the ads from these posts fairly easily as well. But basically the strategy is get to one of the corners, see wherever the ads are spawning, and you can just shoot dead messenger at them over and over again. If they get too close, then you just rotate. You can do a clockwise, counterclockwise rotation around the map, or you can just go straight across the other pillar. You don't want to get surrounded by the enemies. So that also means that the main part of the strategy here with this boss room is ad control. Like, even though it's tempting to just shoot Taipan or whatever heavy you're using and chunk the boss's health down and get him to go immune and get to the next section, while that is tempting, it's the riskier play, because if you don't manage the ads, you will get surrounded, or you're just gonna get hit from every direction by like void seekers and waves of solar, and there's even stasis enemies in the boss room, I think. So it's super easy to just get overwhelmed by the ads and die that way. And not only that, but if you're too late to deal with them, by the time you turn around to deal with them, you might find out that they're tethered and there's nothing you could do. Then you got to go out and find the tether and shoot the tether. By that time, you're already dead. So priority number one is take care of all the ads, bait them back and forth, post up between the left and the right pillar, and just rotate. Go from one to the other, bait the ads over section by section. And then the way the ads eventually do stop spawning. I'm pretty sure. I know they do, at least for the first and second phases. But so you can technically just ignore the boss, and that's the safest bet, is to just ignore the boss. Obviously, don't get too close to the boss because he'll just kick you. Like if you get too close to him at all, he'll do his stomp slash kick thing and send you flying. But yeah, you can essentially ignore the boss and just focus the ads, and then it's way easier to control the room that way, and you won't get overwhelmed because you're not going to feel like, oh my god, I gotta kill the boss, I gotta damage the boss, but I got all these ads. Just never mind, just eliminate one of those factors and just focus on the ads, and it'll be a much more relaxing, stress-free fight, because this boss room is super small and ad dense, right? So it's actually, it can be pretty intense. Like if you don't know the strategy at first when you're doing this, it's kind of a stressful boss fight. But if you kind of have the strategy down, and you know, if you follow through on it, it's really not that bad. But anyways, so that's this week's Nightfall. I'm gonna be doing something with the Leviathan's Breath coming up, because that's getting a huge buff next season, and it was already really good, especially with Volatile, and they're going to be adding Volatile to it, so we'll see what that's going to be like next season. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, leave a comment, let me know what you think. Like, subscribe, that'd help out a lot. Appreciate you guys. Thanks. Take care.